there was a called-in question from WTOP. Can you please explain the $1.12 as opposed to the $1.09? You're recommending that $1.12 be advertised, but your budget is based on $1.09. Can you explain that, please?
Yes. It is practice, or it has been practiced by me and my predecessors, to actually encourage the board to advertise a slightly higher rate than what may be recommended in a proposed budget. The intent there is to give the board some flexibility to make different choices than what is represented in a proposed budget, in part so they can potentially react to the school board, which I noted is seeking about $95 million, I think, more than what I'm recommending. But it gives them some flexibility potentially to set a higher revenue rate than what I'm recommending. The reason for that is that once they advertise the rate, they can set that rate anywhere up to the advertised rate, or they can set it at obviously a lower number, but they can't exceed it. So if they actually only advertise the rate that I built the budget on and then decided in the budget process that they needed more revenue, they're precluded from setting a higher rate. They would have to, if they still wanted to do it, start the process all over again, re-advertise a new rate and set the new rate. And so we always recommend advertising a higher rate, and gives them the flexibility to go up to that, and that's essentially why we do it. Last year, as I recall, I had recommended in a similar fashion a higher rate, and I think it was 2 cents higher than the rate the board actually adopted. What they actually advertised was a penny less than what I recommend they advertise, but a penny greater than the rate they actually set. And the board may do something similar this year. But what they did was they narrowed the flexibility that they had, but they were also sending a message to the public when they did it that don't expect that they're going to radically or dramatically increase the tax rate.
And looking at public safety cuts, you referenced an officer on the street element, maintaining, I guess, that essential personnel. Can you elaborate on that and kind of how that may have affected the decision to eliminate the community resource officers in the middle school, or the proposed one?
Mm-hmm. Well, most of our officers are dedicated to street patrol. There are a number of officers who are involved in investigations, and then there are a lot of other ancillary support kinds of things that the officers do. The focus primarily is on those ancillary or support kinds of things that are important, nice to have, particularly help in the prevention area, but is not the primary element to the officer on the street. And I should say I rely substantially on the recommendations of the police chief and his staff. I didn't dictate to him what the cuts should be. He recommended to me what cuts he thought the agency could absorb under the circumstances. And so the core business of the police department is the officer on the street and the appropriate investigations when there are crimes. And the reductions that he's recommended don't impact those activities directly. They are more in the support category than direct crime fighting or crime prevention.
Transfer as opposed to last year when you had a flat transfer rate.
The board's priority, well, they have a number of priorities, but probably their greatest priority is maintaining the school system. And essentially, last year, schools were not asked to share in the reduction of revenue on the county side. Now, clearly, schools had some reduction in revenue because, like the county does, they share a percent or a penny on the sales tax, and that revenue was going down. But in concert with the board's priority of maintaining the school system, The school transfer was kept flat and not decreased, reflecting the decrease in revenue for the county generally. I believe that it's appropriate in some small measure for schools to absorb some of that reduction in revenue. So they were exempted the first year, but for the 2011 budget, I did not exempt them, but their share of that is only 1%, which is less than what the share is for county agencies generally. And as I noted, it was coincident, given the nature of the budget declining, they continue to have the same percentage of the general fund in terms of their transfer that they had for the current year.